da. You can't go there. That's what I'll see. Sky white go awado. Nigga tot neat nanto. I got yanda. Scott he tea no neta zagawi frat. Ni di ni yo ho hot gay hot. Scott don't put that no honyo. Into gani on. Don't go na go ha.
Yeah.
Donnie and Watro, Isa Wanza day. Ningi adio guasi dogadra, qua, no hot, dietino qua. A togian ho, quego hoyat on sagway diso. Nego dogado, getting scano, twano, tonyo.
Well, I guess we can start. And that is usually our way of doing the opening for any ceremony. That's one of the importance of our existence. For every day, there is no end of being grateful to Mother Earth. We are here today, and with guidance of all of the spiritual beings, and so we are here to listen of the great law, something different to listen to. Maybe that is something that we can compare from the beginning of time. It's sort of, our culture is intertwined in many different ways. And if you study your culture, we also should know that time of creation, because that also has something to do with the great law. The time of creation, how everything originated, all the different things that also stood for symbols. It symbolized many different things. And that we live in this world today, the changing, some people say changing world. The world's not changing, it's us that's changing. We're trying to get better. But the Mother Earth does not want to get better. We're just making it worse for Mother Earth. Because we've become so much lost among ourselves. We are even lost. We do not know where we come from. We are coming from our ancestors. We do not know, even today, what clans we belong. And some even are that bad, they don't even know what nation they belong. They'll just say, well, I'm an Indian. But at the same time, they're not Indian either, if they realize that. Because this is the time that comes. Of the time of Christopher Columbus, when he came, he got lost himself. He thought he landed in the land where he was expected to land. But he came to the native people. So we are what we call Ungwehongwe. So that doesn't match with what we call Indian. And I think the true Indian is the people that come from India. So they are called the Indian people. We are called the Ongwehongwe and the Haudenosaunee. We are not also Iroquois too. We are also, oftentimes we say, I'm an Iroquois. And what does Iroquois mean then? Can you tell me? Can anybody tell me what does Iroquois mean? The only reason why we call ourselves Iroquois because we are taught at the time of early Jesuits, early French explorers who came into this continent, in this Turtle Island, and they saw the people and their customs and their native ways, their traditions. They began to study And so that's where the word came from, part of the Ongwehongwe word and also part French. So you've got the two mixed up together. That's why it has no meaning. But the true meaning is that our customs, when a chief dies, is when they send messages. When a runner will take the message to another nation, and he will holler 3 times. And that is why we got our name as Iroquois, but which you will also hear when I be explaining about what the great law, how it was made up to be, who we are as Haudenosaunee. I'll be using a lot of native languages which I learned when I was a kid. As I grew up, I learned pretty well all the 5 different languages in Iroquois. So I am very fortunate that I can travel in Iroquois country, as I would say, Haudenosaunee country, that I can use. If I go to Mohawk country, I can also speak Mohawk. And if I go to Oneida, I will also try my best to also speak Oneida and Onondaga and Cayuga and Seneca. They're not that hard. People often say, oh, it's hard to learn the language. I say, it's so simple. How come it's taken you so long to learn it? Why is it that you think it's so hard? It's not hard if you put your mind on it. If you compare all the wrong things you do, it's harder. All the bad things we do, it's so simple that we learn the bad things in no time, more than the good things. But I also speak a little bit of Tuscarora too. I learned that, but I lost most of it because I lost my partner that used to be able to speak to me in Tuscarora. When we were growing up, that's why I say you learn when you're growing up and you'll never forget. If you hear it all the time, you've got to hear it all the time too. So I hear it all the time, the language, because I speak to myself. People often say, how come you never forget? Well, I says, I'm always talking to myself and answering myself. So I criticize myself, I say, boy, you're dumb. You're stupid. Says, I agree, I am. It doesn't hurt anybody when I criticize myself. But when I criticize somebody, then it hurts, you know. So this is what we're going to begin. You will see as how the great law has been made by the peacemaker. And that is the reason why we have invited non-natives also to participate and understand. Maybe that way they can also find peace. It's very interesting that the great law was made by only 2 people from the beginning. The peacemaker, the great prophet who came, he was born on earth. And also him and Hiawatha, who he made, elevated him as a Confederate Lord, to work with him towards the good minds of peace. And they were very successful. What a great achievement. What they had done was they were able to disarm all nations of the native people here in this Turtle Island. It only took 2 men to do it. Now, what is the world trying to do today to bring that peace, which they are having a hard time to disarm all nations in the world? It seems funny, and it seems very interesting to know, because my grandmother, it's a funny thing that elders, as my age, I don't think I'm an elder yet, but I'm only a young one. Here's the older one right here. Look, stone. Oh. And I know some people don't like that. They say, look, stone. But I guess we can't help it. When that word, they say, look, stone, means he's old, you know. And I know some people don't like that, but say, you make me older. That's why I always say I'm a young elder. There's some older elders than I am. I'm just following them along right now. And also, as I mentioned earlier, some people get offended when it's recorded. No matter what. Language is recorded. Ceremonies is recorded. Speeches. The great law is recorded. It's been recorded a long time ago, not just now. But the reason why it should be recorded is because people don't understand the language. And maybe they can learn from something from it, at least. But we're very fortunate that people came forward as volunteers to help make this thing go. And it'll go for 9 days. The reason it takes that long is because it took a long time to form this great confederacy, the League of the Five Nations. We don't know how long and when it started. You may have questions and say, when did that start? But today, we often hear writers say it only started probably the 14th century. But as far as the Iroquois people, native elders often said, it happened maybe way before Christ, that the great law had always existed. The reason why they say that is because the white man was able to come from the great ocean and come to this great continent of the Turtle Island. And he found peace. And they were able to come and live in this land and enjoy. Not according to history books. History books always tell native people were such bloodthirsty people. And especially Iroquois. They say that that's all they know is to fight and kill. It might be true a long time ago. But if it was so, that what history books tell us, that we are very fierce people, probably wouldn't let no white man come in this continent. Any moving object, they've probably been captured. But because the native people already had the great law, they knew what peace was. That's why they helped those people when they came from the great ocean. And when they were so sick, and they came in the Turtle Island, they were sick with scurvy, many different kinds of sickness. And the native people were able to help them prepare many different kinds of medicine to make them survive. And that's what has happened. There's a lot of things that my grandmother used to tell me. And the many elders today often hear, they say, this is my grandfather used to say that, my grandmother. I guess it's the same idea as you say, this is what my professor says at the university. These are our professors, the old people. That's why we always refer back to our great-grandmother, great-grandfathers. They are the professors in our, of course we don't have professors, but I guess you would probably say that's who they are. That's our teachers. They don't go by books. Because if it's written down, then they say, this is what you said at that time when you told me. And so, but since ours, it has been never written down until probably about the 18th century, I think, the earliest. And when it got written down, it was something different. Even the one I mentioned about that, the book that I have, the manuscript, it's much different than what they talk about in English of the Constitution of the Five Nations. What this old chief had done, he had, at the time when he spoke, it was recorded by Goldenweiser, who wrote it down. And it took me about almost 2 years to understand the writing, and I was able to read it. So that is what I've been working on it. And then besides, the chief had, at that time when he spoke, he explained as he went along when he recited the great law, so that people will understand. And then also the great law should have always been recited, maybe once every 2 years or once a year. The idea is that people will know what their laws are and what their native rights are. It goes along with reading the great law as well as reading the great, what we call the treaty, because they are bound together, our treaty rights, because it was made by the Confederate Lords or the Confederacy who made treaties. And so they are intertwined with treaties and also the great law. So now I only have one Mohawk sitting here. I don't know where my colleagues are. I don't know where my Cayuga chiefs are gone. I'm the only one here. So I don't know, maybe they're still asleep yet. So I guess we'll start on what we're here for. I thought I would explain before I get started. And as I say, I used to listen to the elders a long time ago talk about Jiniawan, Onasatka Darondane Ganigunglio. Kalonghiagan ng gadi no dawi. Onasatka Darond, Onasahatka to Sungoyadis. Jinaho than what you dawan ye, going to one jog, Jakuta dawan. Newahi, Unawa Jakuta Tatkung. So that means that now the great law came from above. This great prophet who came gave us the prophecy, what is called Kayanarako, Kanigunglio, Kasatstara, Skana Odni. That means the Creator who sent the prophet to come and relate the message to the people on earth about peace, power, and righteousness. And so that is what we're going to be talking about, how that happened. Now, from the beginning of time, the Creator was sad because what he saw, what was taking place on earth. When he made mankind, he did not wish for mankind to go against one another. He did not wish to be bloodshed on earth. When he made mankind, he gave them love, caring, and also appreciation and respect for one another. He did not wish that anyone could take one another's life. That was a sin, to take somebody's life, because you're actually cutting off the creation of the Creator, His creation. The reason why he was sad was because he had thought that people will age. And he will take that away himself. He only gave us so many days to visit this Mother Earth. We do not know when that day is going to come, when your visit will end on this earth. You can be called upon any minute of the day or any night. That's why they say your day can be broken, your night can be broken, your cycle can be broken. The cycle that we live in now, your cycle can be broken. He did not wish that. So that is the reason why he was saddened by the things that was going on. There was so much bloodshed amongst native people, taking one another's life. So he thought he would send a messenger to relate the message. So at that time there was warfare going on amongst all nations. It was very scary. People feared even just to go out, to go and visit somewhere, because it was not safe. It was such a great danger for people to be walking. It seems like to me that's what we're going back to today now. Some non-natives ask me, they say, is it safe to go on reserve? I says, yes, it's much safer than to go to Brantford or Hamilton. But that is what the Creator was saddened about, is because the way things were going on. And so at this land, where everything happened, was even this chief who spoke, he never mentions about where it originated, but the land, what it was called, was what is called is Kahanaya, Kanai in Cayuga. That means where the river divides, like there was an island, and where the river, the current, they split up, they go two ways. And that's why it's called that. Because it's like somebody's legs spread out. The water that flows. That's why they call it. And the big hill. And that is, at that time, they mention in the story that during the wartime, they were warring amongst other nations from the west to the east. There was this warfare the path that used to go east and west. The warriors used to travel. They would go and retreat. There was never an end. One would go on the warpath and maybe kill so many people living in the east. And then same thing, the eastern tribes would retreat, go back to the west, and they would kill and torture. So there was no end. They could find a time that would end, because this is what's going on. And so there was no love, there was no respect for one another at that time. That's the reason why he sent the Creator sent his prophet. There was a settlement, what they call the Huron villages, somewhere on the north part of, at quite a, I guess you would call quite a few miles away from the shore, with these big villages of the Huron villages. There were warfare going on with other nations as well, and there were a lot of killing. And there lived a lady, and also her young daughter. Now the lady did not approve, but what can they do? Did not approve what was going on, because there was a lot of killing. It was not safe to go anywhere. Seemed like they were isolated. So the only way this old lady thought that maybe the only way is to get away from it all. I don't like what's going on. Me and my daughter, in order to save my daughter to be killed by someone, I think the best thing is to move away and go seek another place, maybe a hideout where nobody would know where we are. So that is where she came with her daughter, at this place. And now today it's called Deseronto, or along the Bay of Quinte, or some call it now Tyndonega. And that is where this woman found a place where to settle. So she began to build a little shelter for herself and her daughter. And at this place, close to the big hill. And so they settled there. And for many years, she felt pretty happy about this old lady, that she does not see any more of the killing, because they were by themselves, living by themselves. And as her daughter grew up, and the tradition in them days were of native people, and that's what they call a daughter was downfended, or hidden under the husk. Meaning by hidden under the husk means that she kept her daughter virginity as long as possible, till she become her womanhood. After that, then the mother is the one that decides when the daughter is to get married. And that was the tradition in them days. So she kept this girl, her daughter, hidden under the husk and isolated, that she could not see or be seen by anybody. And this happens in the whole year's cycle. It was always in the whole cycle, 1 year, that they kept this, whether it was a boy or a girl, isolated for that whole length of time. And that was the time, I guess, what we call now, you're growing up and you have to learn about life now. And you learned everything from that time of correction. Your speech, how you are to talk, for that whole 1 year. From the first time that woman sees her menstrual period, then that was the time it becomes very sacred for that woman. For that whole length of time, now she's got to do things what she is supposed to do to make a better human being with herself. Same way with the boy. The woman looked after the girl, and also the grandfather, he looked after the boy and told him about things what to look out for in his lifetime and what good it's going to do him become isolated and under the husk, they call it, downfended, for the whole year. I know I had a taste of that myself, of being downfended. And that's the reason why I think some Native people have that same kind of a way as today. It's still in them today the way it was. Because I know that's the way it was when I was a child. When somebody came to visit, I run away and crawl under the bed or something. That's the way it was in them days. They know you know that you're not supposed to be seen, you run away, not to be seen. And there's a lot of corrections at that time, how to correct yourself during the whole period of that cycle. You would have to correct the way you walk, and the way you walk, the way you act. Not be like that, old already, And the way you walk, you got to walk straight with your feet going this way, not like a duck. And that is correcting how you are to grow up and how you are to talk. You are not even allowed to holler at night because they say something's going to take your voice. There's so much things in nature surrounding us that it will spoil your voice because you're hollering at night. There's a special thing at the time when you holler at night. What's the reason why? But not just holler at any time. And you learn how to speak and learn how to speak loud. That's why I speak loud, because that's the way I was trained. Not mumble inside of me, Because I often say someday you're going to be a speaker. Learn how to talk so you can be heard. And really talk clear. That's how you learn when you grow up. Everything is in that whole year cycle. Same way with a girl. No difference. And so the man, I guess you would say, was a virgin too. Same as the woman. And also the mother is the one also said when the boy is to get married. Because the mother, the two mothers will get together and make arrangements for this little wedding. And she'll take the boy to the girl's longhouse. And when the boy arrives there, he'll live with that girl. It only takes two. And also 2 mothers and 2 to tangle. So that is the reason why is at that time when they would bring the 2 together, that was a tradition. Also is to the woman to prepare a basket of cornbread at the time of marriage. And also the boy's mother would prepare a basket, and the boy would have to hunt the deer and put venison, the meat, in the basket. That's what he would take. That's what she would take when they would go to the girl's home in her longhouse. And then they would come together. And that's what they call it, tie a knot. And they tie a knot with the cornbread and venison, I guess. But anyway, this was the tradition. And they would, when they arrived, the boy, he would give the girl the venison, and the girl would give him the cornbread. That would show that the girl can keep her man, that she can make cornbread. And also the boy can support his wife, because he's a good hunter. And that was the reason. That's what bound the two together. And then from there, then they began to raise family. They were always told them days, I know I was told too, that was a tradition. That the elders often told me, my grandmother told me, says, whenever you're ready to get married, but don't look at the girl before, because you don't even know how to work it. You got to be responsible when you fall in love. It isn't just love, it means responsibility. So that's what my grandmother told me. That's, and also you want to be a good worker, and you also want to, when you get married, make sure that that's for life, not just for 1 or 2 weeks. So this was the tradition that in them days of what they call the people of the longhouse, families. And the tradition was too, I guess, is what the people often talked about. If the marriage didn't work, they try hard, keep them together, but if it didn't work, they would rather, it would be better for them to separate, because they accumulated a lot of sin by calling one another down every day. Because every time they get up in the morning, they're arguing right up till night. They go to bed, they're still arguing. And get up, same thing again. So maybe it'd be better if they separate. So the only thing the girl would do when the boy went out, the girl would put all his belongings outside the longhouse. When he come back, all his stuff is piled up by the longhouse, so he knows he's not wanted anymore. So there's no arguments. He just take his stuff home, go back to his longhouse. That was the tradition. So there was a lot of things of the tradition, the way it was at them days. And that is what this girl was brought up from. What they call a virgin mother. She was a virgin at that time, that the old lady, her mother, made sure, even though at that time there was no man around, there was nobody around where they lived, the daughter and her mother. And all of a sudden, while they were living, and when that girl now was past her, the time for 1 year, where she become now as a young woman now. And now she could have family. So, but it was not time, because the mother didn't say so yet. So the time come, and the mother began to notice that one day she was looking at her daughter, how come she's beginning to size up? So a few days he asked her, say, what happened that you, seems like you're with a child? Of course the girl didn't know anything about, because she never ever had a child before. But the mother knows, because she's the one that knows, understand how it feels like to be pregnant, I guess. So she told her daughter, she says, "You're pregnant." And then the girl began to realize and learn that she is pregnant. So she asked her, "How did that come about?" And the daughter says, "I don't know. I don't know what happened." And then her mother, back of her mind, she was thinking, as the kind of answers she got, "I don't think my daughter's telling me the truth. I think she's keeping a secret. Don't want me to know what actually did happen." So it went on for days and days until the time came when she was growing larger and larger, and she was reaching about the time now she was going to give birth. She asked her again. She said, "I want to ask you, and I want you to tell me the truth. How did it come about that you become pregnant?" And the girl says, "You asked me once, and I still don't know." And that's the truth, that I don't know how it came about. And still, her mother didn't believe her, saying maybe she was just really keeping it a secret. So the time came when the girl now was ready now, a day come that she was going to give birth. So it did come right that the daughter, now the day came, she gave birth. And it was a boy child that was born. And now the old lady become a grandmother now. Now she thought about a lot of things because she didn't want her daughter. The reason why is because she doesn't know how this come about. And she says that I would not accept that child when he's born. She kept that in her mind all the time until the child was born. And so she made up her mind at that day when that child was going to be now born. And so what she was going to do is she's going to get rid of that child. So the first thing that she thought of the first morning was that she went to the river, which the river was already frozen. They claim it was about the time when it was freezing now that happened. And so she went to the river and made a little hole in the ice. And so she went back. Now she went after the child, the boy. And when she got the boy, and she told him that she's going to take him out for a walk. So she did, went down the river where she had prepared, made a hole in the ice, and she threw the baby. She threw the baby in the ice hole, and she saw the current take him away. And she said to herself, "Now I completed my work, what I want to do to get rid of that child so nobody will know." So then, when that happened, when she put the child, then she turned around and went back. And she was only coming back to the house a distance away, and she heard the child crying to the direction that she was going. And as she walked in the doorway, and here the child was laying beside his mother. And she wondered right away what had happened, because she never ever heard of anything happen like that before. So anyway, she thought up about another thing, that she wanted to really get rid of the child. So she thought up another thing. was that the next morning, she got up early in the morning and she went into the clearing and she began digging a hole in the ground, made big enough for the child. She was going to bury him. So when she finished, then she went back and she told the child, she got the child, told him that she was going to take him for a walk. And so they went. And when they arrived at the place where she had prepared the hole in the ground, and she put that child in the ground and she covered him up with dirt. Now, she says, I got rid of him now. I will see him no more. So she began walking back to their house where they lived. And just part of the way, distant away, she heard the child crying again. And when she got back into the house, and here the child was laying by his mother. And she was really surprised. Wonder what's happening now. I've never ever heard anybody survive that way. Now that's twice that I failed to get rid of that child. So now, the third day, the third morning, she thought of the last thing that she's going to do. And I'll be surprised if he's going to survive. So the next morning, early in the morning, she got up and started gathering wood, dry wood. Got a pile of wood and she started the fire. And then when she got the fire going, and then she went back after the child. And then when she got back to the house, told him the child she was going to take him for a walk. So she took him. And they went where the fire was. And so she threw the child in the fire. And she stood there and watched him burn. Burnt up, nothing left. Now, she says, I now completed my task, what I am supposed to do. I will really be surprised if he's going to survive again. I have never heard of anybody that would ever survive through burning in a fire. So she started out again by distant away. She heard the child again. And then she walked in. And here was the child again, laying by his mother. She was really then so confused in her mind, wondering what's happening. Never ever I ever heard of anybody to survive in a fire. Now it began to come in her mind the good tidings of peace. The good mind, she began to receive that now. Is that she said to herself, this boy must have power, must be come from somewhere. He's not only an ordinary child. So she kept thinking about that all day, what happened. She was so surprised what was happening to her. So when night came, as usual, when people rest, and because I guess them days they didn't go to bingo or watch television, so I guess she went to bed. And during the night, it seems like she was half asleep, or maybe she wasn't even asleep, and she heard a knock on the door and told him to come in. And she saw the shadow by the fire that she had in her longhouse. And this figure went by and this man sat down. She knew it was a man's voice. So he told her, he says, This man told her, he says, I only came here to visit for a short time. He says, I come from the west. I'm going east. I thought I'll stop over, come to see you, and tell you something. So he started telling her. He says, you have tried 3 times to get rid of that grandchild of yours. And that's what I come here for, to tell you. That you'll never, ever be able to get rid of that child. Because he's got great power. And that I must tell you, that that child, he was sent by the Creator. What we call a Creator is lo yin da je yung jat a gwe go lo lo yin da na hota what only they go lo lo yin da means that he created all things. He was the maker, creator of all mankind, many things. As you don't know that he exists. There is a man above, up there is the great almighty power. And that is who he was sent by. He was sent, this boy was sent. He come from the heavens for the Great Spirit. He was the one that sent him. So you'll never ever get rid of him. The reason why he sent him, because he said he saw the Creator was sad about so many killing, and there's so much bloodshed on earth. He did not intend it for you people to be like that. You're cutting off his creations. So that's the reason why he sent his boy. And he also chose your daughter to come from her body, this child. And that's what they call in Mohawk Yaguyak Tawad. Means she's clean from sin. She's a virgin. And there are two languages. English, you say virgin, and Guyak Tawad in Cayuga. Yaguyak Tawad in Mohawk. Means she's clean. No sin, nothing. Then also there is a difference. Again, people often get confused about we using a lot of European way when we speak. Some say Yaguya Tatokoto. Yaguya Tatokoto means also the same thing. She's clean, she's virgin. But that's a Christian. But Yakuyak Tawado is native, that woman. I guess when you talk about Yakuyak Tatokanto, that means Virgin Mary, when they talk about. So there are 2 different ways of what we say in our native language. And that's where everything comes from about our native ways. Even the days that we call it. They originated from European way, is what we call Yakuyata Tokoto. That means the nuns. That's why they came here, because they couldn't get none over there. So this is what translates in Yakuyak Tatokoto. Also in European culture, it's because she was chosen. That woman was chosen also in European country to bear a child. Now also the father, the mother of our traditions, where the great law was born from, was sent by the Creator. is also Yagoyak Dawad, Goyak Dawado. So I thought I would explain both ways. Goyak Datokoto means she was chosen. And that's the reason why today we have days that we call which not even belong to us. We call it Yawantatokokto. We don't have no Yawantatokokto. We don't have no Sundays in native culture. Because that's where it originates. We use that word of Saturday and Sunday is because Yawantatokokto is the day that what they call the crucifixion of Christ was, he rose on a Sunday. That's why we call it Yawantatokokto. Because he was born from a virgin mother. So this is some things that we are confused between the two. Because the Creator, he gave us a way of belief. He gave us a way of our own constitution. And so this is why he chose this woman, for this man to be born and to show his power. He only showed his power to his grandmother, what power he carried. Right from the beginning of his birth, he began to show his power. And so this is why this was going on. So now, when that boy was born, when this man, as I say, came to tell her, and he says, I will also give him a name, the name that he will use, and the name that he will call by, according to that place where you live, is where the river divides. And that you will call him the Ganawida. The Ganawida means two currents coming down, and that is where the sacred land of the Haudenosaunee. Now it's called Tyendinaga. And that is where the birthplace of our prophecy, also where it came from, where our great history was born from. And so this man that visited this lady, he told her, he says, that is what I come for to tell you, that there's a Creator up there who made all things. He was the one that sent him here. He's going to show you many of his powers. That's just the beginning, what he has shown you, to show that he has a great power, that he was sent by the Creator. And he will use this name, what I give him, as long as when he's on earth. But there shall be nobody that will be born on this earth shall follow and use that same name again. So he says, this is all I have to tell you. And also I will tell you that you sort of kind of disown your daughter when you ask her about how this come about. And she was telling you the truth, but you tried to disown her, think that she was telling you a lie. But I want you to make up to your daughter. It'll make her feel good to make up to her. Mend those kind of thoughts that you had disowned her. So she felt very bad about that she was going to give birth to a child and she didn't know where it was coming from. So he says, this is all I have to say, to tell you. That's what I come here for. So the man walked out. Now there's a funny thing, I just like to add on what the old people often talked about in oral tradition. They say this, one of the elders were talking about, see they add on sometime when the elders talk about somebody else who will add on, this is the way I know, this is the way it's been talked about years ago. He says, I'd like to add on, he says, this thing here is about that minute that one walked out, and they said there was little snow outside. It had snowed at that time at night. And there was a little bit of snow that you could see tracks. And it says that when that woman, in the morning, she thought she'll check that man that was here last night, which direction did he go? And says she walked out and looked at the doorway, and here she saw Tahong Tanega, his tracks. That means the big jackrabbit tracks that come from the west. And he come in, he walked back out, and he went east. So it wasn't a man's track. So we don't know. Maybe nature or some animals are able to disguise also as to become a man, to relate that message, which we don't know. So then, as I say, there were a lot of strange things that was happening to that lady. And she began now, the good mind is beginning now to work in her mind. So the next morning, when they both got up, and the old lady started cooking, preparing breakfast, and she began to fry eggs and bacon. Once she got everything ready, and then they start eating. And during the time they were eating their breakfast, and the old lady began to relate the message, what had happened to her that night. She told her daughter everything. And she also made up with her daughter. Says, I feel bad that the way I treated you all this time, that I kind of disowned you. And so she says to her, I repent all the things what I have done to you. Now that I was told that this is a special boy, that is my grandchild, that is born on this earth. He's going to become a great man one of these days when he grows up. And that boy, he's going to grow very rapidly, more than you'll ever know about other children. And so from there on, they begin to now had in their mind now that this is what had happened, that was a special child. And it seemed like it wasn't very long that child began now. She was so surprised that he was growing so rapidly. Every day he was getting bigger and bigger. Seemed like just only a little while, he was already running around outside. Become quite a big boy now. And when he's able to go outside and play around, and they felt pretty happy about it, because the grandmother now really cared and loved her grandson, and so is her mother. And they used to pronounce the grandmother, name was Kahendokta, was what they used to call her. And the girl that the Ganawida was born from, they call her Kahendisung. And I used to hear when I was younger that they say that people should not use those kinds of names, same as the peacemaker. But now you hear a lot of that, Indian names now to different places. I've heard names of that given to somebody. Somebody told me I have that name too. So I don't know. I guess we have lost that kind of a belief not to use that kind of a name anymore. Got to a special name, sacred name. So the grandmother and the mother began to really care for the boy as he was growing up. And so one day, as he was playing around, and he came back in, and the grandmother says, "How would you like for us? I'm thinking about maybe we should now go back to our main village where we came from, where your mother and I came from." And so the mother asked her son, says, "How would you like to go out, to go and visit where we originally came from?" "Yeah," he says, I would like that very much. He says, "I often thought about that between us three. Is there any other people besides us?" He says, "I would like to see other people as well." He says, I would talk with them. And so he says, "Well, in 3 days' time, we're going to make preparation to go." So she says, "Well, we'll start preparing and now to go back to our home village." So they made preparation, the day came, and they left. And the boy was so excited, so in a hurry to see the people. So when they got back to the main village, they went straight where the great war chief lived. And they told him about it, what had happened. And he said, "Maybe you people remember, or did you ever hear about? Did you ever hear that there was somebody, a daughter, and this old lady went away from here?" And so they all went to this great war chief, and the old lady started talking to him about it. What all happened to her at the time when that boy was born. So she relayed the message, and the great war chief was so excited. He says, "Well," he says, what I'm going to do is, instead of me knowing it, I would like for you to relate that to the rest of the people." So he says, "I will call a meeting. We will all come together." So the great war chief got busy, and he started sending fax and telephone here and there, you know. So everybody knew what's going to take place. And he said all the messages. Now everybody came. And there's a lot of people assembled at this one place. And everybody was so excited to hear what the great story was, what had happened to the old lady. And so when everybody assembled, and the great war chief, he stood up and he says, "No, they even have prepared a special place where they can sit, the three of them, because they're only visitors for now." And that's what they put them on a comfortable seat. And that's what they call in Cayuga, Ganakdioske. Ganakdioske ahuma sagodidron means that's where they put them. And now they're going to listen. So now the great war chief, he introduced the three of them, and he says, "I remember the old people talked about that the lady and her daughter went away from here, now they're back, and now they even got a child." So he says, now she's going to relate everything, what happened, where they got a hideout somewhere not a ways from here. So they come back to tell us what had happened to them, the great story. So now the war chief sat down, and now he told the old lady now to relate the message to the people. So the old lady stood up and she began to talk. about what had happened. She told everything, just how that peacemaker was born, the Garnawida. She relayed all the message to the people. And where they were living at the time, to see what all the things that had happened, and to hear. And so everybody listened, was so excited about it, knowing what happened. No, never ever anybody ever heard of things happen and what happened to them. And it seemed like, by the way they were looking at this child, the Garnawida, he seemed like he acted like an old man. He was not acting like a child. And so then the old lady, she relayed all the message, told everything what had happened. And then when she got through with her story, then everybody began to talk to one another, what had happened, and how the boy was born, and what all he had done to show his power. Nobody ever heard of such thing as that. So everybody was so surprised to hear that kind of a story. And then the old people said at that time, after everything was over, and usually the way it is when people assemble, they kind of break away for a while, and they began to walk around and talk. Everybody was talking about it. And now the boys began to play amongst themselves. And so they come around to meet also the peacemaker, the Garnawida. And when they had talked with him, and now they thought about playing a game with the peacemaker. So they started the game to play. And while they were playing, as usual, the boys, now they began to act funny, thinking about now having a fist fight, and began to, go against one another. So now the peacemaker, the boy, he stood between them. He told them, he says, that's not right for you boys to be fighting. Don't you know you are all brothers of the same blood? The Creator, He made you that way. You're supposed to care and respect one another. If you're going to hurt one another, the Creator is going to be sad because He made that person. So it's not right what you boys are doing. You're supposed to have good mind when you play or whatever you do. You always have a good mind. Though it wasn't really what he said, it wasn't really because the boy telling them what they were more interested what he had to say. They never heard anybody say that it's not good to fight, that you will hurt one another or love one another. Nobody ever mentioned about that at home, in their homes. They were also surprised what the boy had to say. So then, when everybody dispersed, they all went home, and the boys told their parents. When they got home, they said, this is what the Garnawida said to us. We were playing, all of a sudden my boys wanted to fight, And he stood between us and he told us that it was not good to fight and to hurt one another. We should love one another, care for one another, respect for one another. So the elders at that time, they got together and they said that maybe what we should do, maybe we should invite him. We should all gather in this place again and assemble. Maybe there's something he can tell us. And so they invited him. They had a meeting, the elders, at that time, that they would invite the Ganawida to speak to them. See what he had to say, because they were so surprised with all the things that he had said to the boys. That's why it brought a lot of interest to the elders. So everybody agreed, the elders, that we should do that. We should assemble and let him speak. Maybe he's got a lot more to tell us. So the day came, the date was set for a time to come together. And then when they did come together, and the great war chief again, he opened the meeting and introduced the boy again, and then told about the meeting, that they all agreed that they should invite the Ganawida to relate the message to them. Maybe he has more to say. So now when the Ganawida began to now speak, after he was told that he was to relate the message, if he had any message. So that the Ganawida stood up. Yes, he says, I have a message for you people. He says, I was sent down here on earth by the Creator. The first thing I must do is I must stop this bloodshed and warfare that's going on. In the eyes of the Creator, who is the maker of all things, he is very sad of the way things is going on earth, that he didn't intend it when he made people to live on this world, is to help one another and be generous with one another. So he says, I bring three things. Most important is peace, power, and righteousness. That's what peace means. Power. And the third is righteousness, what they call skano and gahake. That means everybody will also be content living. No fear anymore. What a great feeling would be that there would be no fear for anybody to go anywhere. That there will be no more warfare. And the way it is today, I would describe what the peacemaker said. I would describe the way things are today. It's like the way the Creator made Mother Earth. He made veins of what they call the water runs underneath the earth. It's all the veins of Mother Earth, the water is running one direction. And same way with the water, they call the streams of water running to the west. And also there are creeks that's running to the west. They are flowing one way. And also there are rivers that are running to the east, and from the north, from the west, and they're going to the east. They're all flowing that direction. And same way with the lakes, they're also circulating. So from little water to the big water. Kahnegowanes kahnegun. Yuhneginigo. That means that the spring running out. And so that's the way it is with people. There are little people that are getting killed. Their blood is flowing into the land. There are young people also that are getting killed. Their blood is flowing too. The middle-aged people also, and also the older people. The age, all the elders are dying too, been getting killed. And that's what they describe, the little streams to the big water, is how the blood is flowing on earth. And the Creator didn't intend that. And so it must stop now. And I am here to stop those things that's happening. Because you people, it's a great sin what you are doing. You are cutting off the creation of the Creator. Because He didn't intend it that way. He intended that when He molded mankind to walk upon this earth, is He gave them so many days to live in this world, to go about. He is the one that is going to call you back when your day is up. I guess it must be like when you get a visa from the government. You can only stay for so long. When that visa runs out, you've got to go, or otherwise you could be deported. So I guess that's the way it is with our lives today. We live. When the day comes, nothing can buy that health, nothing can buy for you to stay. Even if you offered me millions and millions and trillions of dollars, I still couldn't be able to stay. Because when it's time for me to go, I'm going to go. For I don't need no more money up there. It's a never-living world. That's why they call it Unheowe Gauhyagi. That Gonheo is what I guess Ganos and Dunhong, they own a Sandago, Nantuwanjagi. That means you don't need no money, nothing. Don't even need women, because there's lots of women up there too. You get everything, fulfillment of life up there. When you're through, but you're craving here on earth. You want more money. Got to go to bingo. Got to win so much money. We want everything what we can get. So this is why is that it was supposed to be intended. So many days that we have to walk on earth. We are only visitors. We don't own nothing on earth. The Creator owns your soul. And that's why we have two. We carry two. We carry our soul. We also carry our spirit. The spirit of the body and the soul are two different things. And that's why they call it, in our language, we call it Atunthesra. That means your soul. Atwaisra is your spirit. So there are two different things. Your body is the spirit, where the spirit of Mother Earth comes from. That's why when you die, your body goes back and turns back to Earth, because it comes from Mother Earth. That's why we call the spirit of Mother Earth. Is your body comes from there. But your soul comes from the Creator. And that's what goes back. So we depart. That's the way I was explained. That's why we use two terms of Atunthesra, Atwaisra. So always remember that Atunthesra is your soul. And also Atwaisra is your body, what it does after death. So at time, as I go along, that's why it takes a little longer, is because, as I have mentioned, this is the way I learned. It's explanation, explaining everything as we go along in the great law, what it means. And so at a time when the peacemaker, he related those three things, peace, power, and righteousness, to the people. And then when he was talking, there are people at that time now wanted to know exactly what did peace mean, and what does power mean, and what does righteousness mean. Those three things that they asked the peacemaker to explain, those three things, what does it mean? So he began to talk, explain about what is peace. He says it's like this. Peace means that now what you hear, that's what's going to bring you good mind. That means that you always will have good mind. There's no fear because you always carry good mind. You don't ever fear anybody following you and clapping you over the head because you got good mind. But if you got bad mind, somebody's going to follow you. That's the difference. You won't fear no matter where you go if you carry good mind. And one person has good mind, and then the next person will have a good mind too. And you add from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the more powerful the mind gets of Ganigunriyo. Means the good mind becomes more powerful. So you put the Ganigunriyo and the power together to make a powerful mind. That means peace. And you have good mind. The more people you have, we all think the same. You don't fear anymore about anybody because you all have good mind. And that's powerful because you all have the same mind. Now, is this the third one, what I've talked about, is skono, righteousness. It means and what that when you when the Creator molded you as a person, He had wished that when He sent you down on earth is to walk anywhere on this earth and be happy. He did not think that you're going to have a fear to go here and to go there, that something's going to happen to you. So this is why He said, this is what it means to three things together. Means there's no fear, I don't care where you go. You put those three things together. You'll always be happy. Everybody will respect you, no matter where you go. But if you don't, nobody won't respect you. So he says, now I completed what I have to say. The more people work together that way, then we keep that big ball rolling of power. We'll keep it rolling. Everybody will think the same. And the more the ball rolls, means we gathered that mind into a ball, now it's going to roll. Somewhere else we'll add on more and more and more. The more powerful we get. It's not this. It'll be the mind of peace. Good mind. You can influence a person with a good mind. Sometimes we can influence a person very slow. That's how the great law works.